It's time to quit your job and start living the life you've always dreamed of. I heard somebody say that on an advertisement this week, and it caught my attention. Why? Well, there are many reasons, but just kidding. Well, I'm learning that once you reach a certain stage in life, you can say, you start to think about things that never gave you pause before. Things like bills and college tuition and equity and retirement projections. These thoughts nag and they influence our decisions about material possessions so that we'll feel safe in this shifting and treacherous world. It makes me look at new eyes with somebody like John Fryer, who, frustrated with his inability to downsize enough to fit into his small Manhattan apartment, Ellen, invited his friends over to price every single item he owned and list each for sale on eBay. From his winter coat to his personal photographs, a half-used bag of sugar, his contact lenses, his tube of toothpaste. Everything he owned was listed for sale on eBay. And it became such a challenge in the end that it turned into an art project featured in the University of Iowa Museum of Art. John Fryer's determination to sell everything he possesses continues on his website, allmylifeforsale.com. But in this middle part of life, I'm finding possessions represent a sort of security that they never did when one was young and carefree. And sometimes thinking about giving up that security scares the daylights out of me. In that context, the thought of just up and quitting a job that provides things like health insurance and retirement benefits, it makes me think, no thanks. I think I'll keep my job and I'll take a pass on the life I've always dreamed of. Our gospel lesson for today comes from Luke chapter 12, and it's a continuation in a litany of sayings by Jesus that left his followers just scratching their heads in confusion. Its beginning is yet another one of Jesus' teachings on money and possessions, one of many. Jesus talked more in the Gospels about possessions, wealth, material accumulation than any other topic. He seemed to think that our attachment to material possessions has some direct impact on the wellness of our souls. Sometimes Jesus spoke about these matters with nuance and generality, but not today. Today's passage is blunt and to the point. Here's exactly what Jesus said. Sell all your possessions. To those who were listening to Jesus that day, hearing him utter these words clear and uncompromising, sell all your possessions, translates more than 2,000 years later to something as ludicrous as just quit your job. It involved the folks listening to Jesus thinking about the abandonment of the security that they'd worked for so long that they just managed to eke out a layer, if very, very thin, of protection they felt would catch them if something happened, if they fell through the cracks in a society with no safety nets. So I think it's perfectly reasonable that the people listening to Jesus, and even you and I, hear this passage with a healthy dose of skepticism. What could Jesus possibly have meant? Those people needed everything they could save and accumulate to make sure that they were providing a secure future for themselves, for their families. And we need our 401ks for the looming cost of retirement. Who will take care of us when we get old? How will we know our families have enough to live? Surely Jesus, if he were here, if he understood the insecurity that nags at us every single day, would never say something to us like, sell all your possessions, or quit your job. And so when we read this passage, we're looking for deeper meaning, some way to explain in Jesus' words some deeper, more mysterious, esoteric truth. I hate to say it, friends, but I suspect that when Jesus said, "Sell all your possessions," he actually meant, "Sell all your possessions." He did not say, "Hold a garage sale to get rid of the extra stuff in your basement and don't forget to give a percentage to charity." Or make a point of regularly going through your closets and giving away the skinny clothes that, let's face it, we all know you'll never wear again anyway. Or he did not say, "Try your best to downsize and just try to be a little bit thoughtful about your consumption, okay?" Jesus said, "Sell all your possessions." That's what he said. Some expressions of Christian practice over these 2,000 plus years have, in fact, equated poverty with holiness. It is possible to do the unthinkable, to sell our possessions, to quit our jobs, to reject the accumulation of things and money. And just look at John Frayer and his radical downsizing art project. But there are not a lot of us who are setting up websites to sell all our worldly possessions or just up and quitting our jobs. We're consumers of the highest order. We work ungodly hours. We contribute faithfully to our 401ks. We constantly refine the list of what it is we need because we so very desperately do not want to be left without any security. So this morning we're faced with the question of what to do with this troubling passage, with Jesus' direction to his first disciples to go and sell all your possessions. As is the case with most biblical texts, it would be a serious mistake to pick out little pieces of this text and to use them as brushes with which we paint broad strokes. As we know, Jesus' words can easily confound the casual reader. With a difficult biblical text like this, we can often get to its core meaning when instead of asking the question, "What did Jesus say?" we go a little bit deeper and we ask, why would Jesus say such a radically difficult thing? Look carefully with me. Jesus begins with these tender words, "Do not fear, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom." And then he comes in with the gut punch, "Sell all your possessions and give the money to the poor." But did you hear that? Do not fear. God is pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions. I think perhaps we find the key to Jesus' teaching not in the message of prosperity, where we follow Jesus for the sole purpose of benefiting materially. God is pleased to give you the kingdom. And not even in the message of asceticism, where we endeavor to live like John Frayer, selling everything and living with nothing. No, I think we begin to understand the why of Jesus' declaration right here at the beginning. Do not be afraid. Strange that Jesus would say that, isn't it? The other times these words are used in the New Testament, Jesus and his disciples find themselves in scary and life-threatening situations like powerful storms on the Sea of Galilee, or going to sleep one night and meeting an angel in your dreams, or running for your life because evil people in power are out to kill you. But none of these dramatic or life-threatening events are looming in this case. Yet Jesus says to his disciples, "Do not fear." Jesus knew the accumulation of possessions was something that we do to create a sense of security and to numb our fear. Before Jesus said, "Sell your possessions," he first asked his disciples and us to do something so much harder. Do not be afraid. I finished up a big, long road trip yesterday. And because I was in the car for almost 2 full days, I finally got caught up with past episodes of NPR's This American Life. On a recent episode called Captain's Log, I heard the fascinating story of a little group of Girl Scouts, Girl Guides in China, they're called, where this story took place. The motto of the Girl Guides, an international organization like the Girl Scouts, is this: "A guide smiles and sings under all difficulties." Who knew that this motto would be tested to an extreme when a group of elementary-aged girls, children of missionaries and expatriates from countries all over the world, Canada, the United States, Belgium, would be captured and imprisoned in a Japanese concentration camp for 4 years during World War II. The day after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, Japanese soldiers showed up at Chifu, the girls' boarding school, and they shipped the whole school to a concentration camp called Weishen. The teachers at the school were taken prisoner with the girls, and so they packed up brownie uniforms and musical instruments and as many books as they could carry. And they set out with determination to insist that the girls live up to the foundational principle of Girl Guides. A guide smiles and sings under all difficulties. And the difficulties, they were considerable. There was very little food. Many starved to death. It was bone-chillingly cold in the winter with no coal to heat their sleeping quarters. They witnessed unspeakable brutality and violence. But the teachers, they ran their little part of the camp just like they would any other Girl Guide troop. They required each girl to do at least one good deed every day. They insisted on excellent posture and good table manners even as they sat down to eat a gruel made from animal feed. And they sang every day, in every occasion they could. They sang. At this point in the story I was listening to, the NPR reporter interrupted his narrative and said that he just couldn't believe what he was hearing. This is not possible. So he looked and he looked until he found a survivor of Weishen, one of the girls who had been in the Girl Guide group that had been in prison for 4 years. Her name is Mary Previty. She's 82 years old and she lives in New Jersey. Mary remembers the hardship of the camp, but she remembers even more how their teachers kept insisting that they show kindness and try their best to sing their hearts out. Though later she tracked down some of her teachers who said that they were living in terror about the violence all around them. Mary says the girls lived a miracle where grown-ups preserved our childhood. One of the things we sang when the Japanese were marching us into the concentration camp was the first verse of Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength. In trouble, we will not be afraid. And first thing every morning, the teachers would lead the girls in songs set to bouncy camp melodies. It was like you weren't going to be afraid if you could sing about it, she said. We would sing every night, day is done, gone the sun from the sea, from the hills, from the sky. All is well, safely rest, God is nigh. How could you be afraid, she said, when you're singing about all is well, safely rest, God is nigh? How could you be afraid? All of these words just sung into our hearts, Mary remembers. I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. That was just profound. On August 17th, 1945, American soldiers liberated the camp and rescued the girls and their teachers and the other prisoners. And for the last 20 years, Mary Previty has been on a mission to meet all the soldiers who rescued them. Just a few weeks ago, she met the last one in China. Jesus said, "Sell all your possessions." But he's talking about changing much, much more than the inventory of material possessions that we own. Jesus is talking about taking an honest look at our lives and noticing what it is that motivates us. Because Jesus knew when he said these words that you and I often live bullied, tricked, manipulated by fear. We make decisions that keep us chained to jobs we hate, possessions that encumber us, relationships that poison our lives because we're afraid. We're so afraid, and we'd never ever have the courage to let go and trust everything to God. There are bills to be paid, after all. What is it that defines your life, that influences your decision-making, that takes its place at the forefront of your mind? Are you scared? Jesus said, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And Jesus also said, perfect love casts out fear. The fact of the matter is, after all of his work listing his whole life for sale on eBay, John Fryer has been unable to stop accumulating stuff. He just continuously turns around and lists his acquisitions over and over again, selling everything he has in an effort to live with nothing. Here's the worst part. So far, everything he owns, his whole entire life, he's sold. And he's only made $6,000. Jesus said, sell all your possessions, and he meant it. So today, you could hear these words of Jesus, and you could go out and sell everything you have in hopes that you'll make a little more than $6,000. You could even go into work tomorrow and quit your job. But whatever it is that you do, hear the deeper message of Jesus behind these words, and do not live your life shackled and wrestled down by fear. I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. That is profound indeed. Amen.